go around and state your name, and if you're a staff, just state that. Joe Kelly, Chair of this committee.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Smith. I'm a staff attorney in the legal department.
Suzanne Woodland, Regulatory Counsel, old person, lots of history.
Daria Steele, Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire.
Corum Hallowell, Parks and Greenery Foreman.
Kathleen Wheeler, archaeologist who'd worked on this project.
Dee Forte, I'm also on the Historic Cemetery Committee.
Joyce Patterson with Seacoast African American Cultural Center.
He's in the department.
Yeah, Randy Antonella, Legal Department intern.
Wonderful, awesome. Love that we have a quorum. Thank you guys so much for coming. We are going to review and approve the draft minutes of the April 21st, 2025 meeting. We did review it the last meeting, but we didn't have enough, we didn't have a quorum to take action on it. So I would look for a motion. First, is there any changes that anyone saw in the minutes? Okay, hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, seconded by
Second.
Ron. Oh, perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect, passes. Thank you guys so much. Next, I would look to Suzanne, just a quick overview of the Langdon Farm burying ground.
So I've double checked again with our in-house staff and both planning and legal, and right now there's no activity that would impact the burial site at this point. They are still keeping a close eye on things. As you know, they have the preservation report and the recommendations for protecting that site. So this is just a continuation that we are keeping an eye on things, and we'll let you know once there's some kind of significant activity that might be of interest. So.
Okay, any questions? Covered that one pretty well. Thank you so much for the update. Number 5 is the curation alternatives for the remains that are currently held by Kathleen. We discussed a little bit, so I would look to maybe Jen to summarize the Dickman Farm Museum. Jen was really great and found some colleagues and some people that she knew within the museum curation world, and we had a great meeting. And I'm really rambling today. I apologize. Pass it to Jen.
Yeah, no ramble, thank you. The museum curator at the Dyckman House had some really insightful comments, because there have been remains found at the Dyckman House starting, I think, in 1912. And the Smithsonian just came and helped itself to some of them, and they've actually been reinterred, those particular remains. But I think that to summarize the general gist of what she said, it was find, as you know, as this committee is so representative of, find stakeholders in the community that are willing to either curate the remains and hold on to them, or you know, if there's a cemetery someplace that has both the knowledge of how to handle the remains, as well as the roots and longevity. And so I think that was comforting for us to know that that was kind of where this committee is heading.
And then just to add on to that, so for those of us that were actually in person at the meeting, we didn't quite have, because we didn't have a quorum and we had technical issues in October.
We did have the Zoom issues.
We did, I know, it was a struggle. We had some conversation about whether potentially Strawberry Bank, who has an archaeologist on staff, might be appropriate if there were a way to find a way to make that comfortable for them and for the committee. Then at the very last moment, someone said, well, you know, what about the Portsmouth Library? They have
They have that room.
They have a special collections room. They already hold actually some of the, you know, documentation and other physical records from the development of the memorial, actually. And so we put out an inquiry to the library director, who talked to her staff, and they said they would be happy to entertain a conversation, continuing conversation with the committee about whether that might be an appropriate place for the remains with proper protocols as might be recommended by, you know, our resident archaeologist here across the pond or across the river. And perhaps doing a sacred container, so that they're, you know, really designated and understood to be very special and sacred, and then await, you know, however this committee evolves and whenever the descendant community decides it might be appropriate to do something else with them. So they are willing to have that conversation with the committee, if that's where the committee would like to go. So those were two pieces that kind of came up at the last meeting. And so that's part of what we wanted to bring forward today. If there was interest in exploring that further, then we would look to develop more information, both from the library staff, from our archaeology friends, and kind of maybe bring something back in the new year that says, okay, this might be a way to make this happen.
Yeah, it was really funny because we were sitting in our non-meeting discussing like, okay, they must have some type of, you know, box and equipment and then I can't remember who, we were like, yeah, like,
It was wrong.
yeah, like,
I don't know if it was me.
I don't know, it could have been, me,
I'll take credit if
we
you
were
want
like,
to give it to me.
yeah, like how they preserve everything in the library in that one room, and then it kind of was a light bulb where you're like, oh, that could be a good place for them, especially as we talk about a special physical holding place that also allowed the community, you know, to be maybe more involved and remember.
Yeah, turn off.
So, yeah.
Jinx it by talking about
Yeah, it should have, I had my sound off, so I don't know why it did that. All right, I was trying to do it so that if we
I
wanted to
know.
pull up the,
It's okay.
okay.
You know, so that's one of the options. I would, if the committee sees it so, I think it would be really good to potentially start those conversations and look, you know, through the advice of Kathleen and kind of really get the committee in with the library and look to see if that could be a good holding place. Again, one of my, in my very short pro list, would be, you know, physical access, obviously not to the remains, but a place that people could go and learn more, ideally, as we have talked about in this committee, making sure the public understands, you know, what this committee does, what the site was, what the original archaeologist did, what the original fundraising was, what the memorial park is. So I thought that could be a really good, and then we are keeping them under the stewardship and ownership of the city on city property, city maintained. Because I know that was a concern of the committee, if we were sending them off to a university or even say to Strawberry Bank where there could be rotation in staff or X, Y, and Z. So I would open it up for discussion to the committee.
I just wanted to recall that part of that conversation was also, Jill remembers that we would talk to the Black Heritage Trail
yeah.
as a local repository.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw that on the table as well.
I'm not the right person to
Yes.
ask.
And Jill had volunteered to have that conversation, I think if I remember.
Right, I had volunteered to have the conversation with Valerie first
Valerie.
to see what her idea was like, but we haven't been able to make time yet.
Okay, and that's okay. We don't have, you know, we're not making a decision this evening, so maybe what we'll end up working on is probably I would assume these conversations wouldn't happen until the start of the new year. So maybe we can try to get on our calendars a meeting with the Black Heritage Trail and the library and kind of see if it you know.
I
goes
need to
from
also
there.
add the fact that I know that when I have that conversation with Valerie, she's gonna refer me back to Jerry
Absolutely.
Ann. So I need to put that out there.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is, first, are we gonna first talk to Jerry Ann Bogus and then to the library, or are we gonna do it concurrently?
I would
or-
think concurrently,
We could do that concurrently, yeah.
yeah, with hopes of at least setting the groundwork for the beginning of next year to by the middle of the year, have a firm, concrete plan for where we will house, whether that is, again, displayed at the library or in the hands of the Black Heritage Trail in their curation projects. Sound good? Okay. There's no more convo on that one. Next, we were looking, and what we discussed at one of our last meetings, a lot of the committees will give end of year or end of term reports to the city council. And so Suzanne and I were talking that it would be nice for this committee to potentially do that also, especially where we have we updated the mission statement and kind of changed our name this year and really kind of broadened some of the potential future impact that this committee will have on the city, i.e. landing farm burial ground or any sites that may be discovered in the future. So in the packet, you'll see that there is a draft. Thank you so much for Suzanne and Jen for getting that together. A draft of what, committee recommendations go forward to the city council and kind of just an update of some of the work that we did this year, including changing the structure of the committee to have the representatives from the descendant community organizations, and then obviously the Portsmouth residents. So if people just want to glance that over and let us know if you have any desired changes within that, or if there's a committee member who would be interested in presenting this to the council. And if not, that is okay.
This hasn't changed since you sent it out, right?
No,
Okay.
no, just making sure everyone feels comfortable, or if they feel that there's anything missing, or, they feel that needs to be added.
We thought this would be helpful for the next city council to get the committee launched quickly. Can I just ask, is everyone comfortable with the structure? Are you willing to continue to serve, Ron? Can I put you on the spot?
If I'm asked nicely. Yes, I am.
Please
I
serve
am.
again.
That would be lovely.
I am.
Because what we've done in the past is if there are existing committee members with the blue ribbon, when we give the information to the mayor, we indicate that the committee members are willing to continue to serve.
And we are still in hopes of finding one more Portsmouth resident to serve on the committee. But if everyone is willing to serve, that is great. If you're not willing to serve and you don't want to publicly speak here right now, feel free to email myself and Suzanne, and we will make sure that is very clear. But if not, then we will present this to the city council as kind of a synopsis of what we've done and the work that we hope the committee continues into the next term. Obviously, this council is primarily a re-elected council, so I would not see this committee would ever be in jeopardy in general in the city, but we just wanted to make sure, in case the council changed hands dramatically, that there was a good, consistent flow of information. Yeah.
What is the mechanism for how you might find a Portsmouth resident? Just thinking about some of
We-
the.
Yeah, we have it listed on our committees right now at the city clerk's office. I actually was I was just thinking about maybe having, Monty's, see if he can stick it in as a special note in the newsletter by itself. And then I would assume typically it's been word of mouth within the community of people people recruiting other people.
Yeah, I would say that's typically the case. You think of someone who might have interest and or skill, or ideally both, and ask them if they'd be willing to serve, recognizing it's unpaid. Yeah, so if anyone has any ideas, we'd be happy to reach out and bring someone else on board. So,
If there's anyone who would like to present this to the council, let me know. If not, then I'll have it under, if it's not presented, then I would just have it under my name as a presentation. And I would just, this would go in our city council packet for our December meeting. And then when we get to it under my name, I would talk about it. But if there is a committee member who would like to get up on the podium and speak for a few minutes about it, very happy to do that. Always happy to.
and presentations normally take place at the beginning
Beginning.
of the meeting, so you don't have to sit for hours.
Yes.
So that's the plus side if you're coming to speak. Those presentations are upfront in the meeting.
And if anyone wants to, I know myself and I would assume Jen and Suzanne are happy to, help write up a smaller blurb. We wouldn't be asking you to read this all off of the document. So if anyone has any interest in that, just shoot me an email and let me know. If not, then I will add it for the next city council meeting under my name. Okay. We are flying through this agenda.
Well, but can I just,
Yes.
I know it probably has a specific objective and then
Yes.
it says, committee recommendations, but do you want in this report to have any, notion or mention of curation and possible research? The value of research and, I don't know, just,
I think
unless this
that's-
had a very specific, aim that you just wanted to say, we're changing our name and this is why, and you wanna just leave it that simple.
No, I mean, I have no problem adding that information. That was really just to solidify and really readdress to the public that we changed our name, changed our mission if it looks a little bit different. But I think that's a great idea to, have a couple lines in there about how we are, still looking for the future of any advances of technology. We still have some remains that are held in curation, and yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So if a couple of sentences are coming to mind, since we
Yes.
have time,
We
I
have
can.
Cause almost what you just said, if you could.
That's what I was just thinking too.
It's probably off the top of your head,
I
if you
wish I
can
could
bring it
remember
back,
what I
but-
just said 32 seconds ago.
Is this recorded? Can we just go back and?
Playback.
Playback.
Good question.
We could put a line like something like the committee is, what did I say? I'm the worst. So the committee is committed to, or hold on,
Committee.
committee.
Right.
Well, we should, I think, first, if we're gonna talk about it, acknowledge that we still have some remains. That we're not that the city is still the holder of, curated, I don't know if that's the right way you say curated remains or remains from the site that are held in curation.
They were actually, curation's a kind of a funny word. I mean,
Yeah.
they were held with the intention and hope that they would yield additional research value.
There we go.
Oh, right. So it is important to continue this committee
Yes.
because remains a small, I wanna indicate it's small.
Yeah, small portion of
It's a
remains.
small portion of remains are still uninsured, or not what's the word?
Still,
Are held with the hope, there we go.
Yield additional research.
With the hope that they will.
Additional research value. Some future.
Well, you might just mention that, the descendant community, the reason it happened, the descendant community,
Decided,
decided that they may learn more about origin
yes.
and other questions
With
related to their
advancing
ancestors.
technology.
Okay, hold on, grabbing the thoughts, and then I'll move it around and we'll read it all back.
That's a good catch, thank you for that.
I mean, because if anybody looks at some of these agenda from the past, it's like it's a recurring issue, and I think that might just help begin to just crystallize it.
Yeah.
If not clarify it, but just like, this is something that has come up meeting after meeting after meeting, and it has been a point of discussion. And we put our collective brains together on this and our collective hearts, so I think it's just bears kind of mention if it's going to the city council about what's happening here.
I agree with you, and I agree with you that like on record, again, solidified that it was voted to keep these out for possible advanced testing.
Suzanne's going.
No, I'm just trying to decide which order to put these sentences in. So I'll read back and then you guys can wordsmith. So I began with, given this is all about giving guidance as to why we want the committee to continue, it is important to continue this committee because a small portion of remains are held with the hope that they will yield additional research value. The descendant community, I wanted to grab the history, the descendant community
Voted at the time of
This
discovery.
2015.
Yeah, voted in
decided
2015 at
in
the time of discovery.
2015 that the community may okay. Okay.
I love real-time workshopping.
Guess as we have the time.
I mean it, I love.
Okay, all right. I know, and if I know what I did wrong in terms of logging in, so I'm gonna have to fix it. It is important to continue this community, it is important to continue this committee because a small portion of remains are held with the hope that they will yield additional research value. The descendant community previously decided in 2015 that the community may want to learn more about the origins of those who are buried on Chestnut Street and and thus asked for them to be held or
Yeah.
sacredly
Yeah.
until
Held in sacred trust.
Oh, there we go.
that's it.
There we go.
Nice words.
Should we add the committee is currently evaluating
Yes.
options for how the
Stewardship?
remain,
These are
Stewardship, yeah.
Yeah.
stewarded.
how the remains will continue to be stewarded over the next, 10 years or more. Okay,
I mean, I think Jennifer brought it up, the whole, Smithsonian kind of swoops in, and so if you start talking about curation of human skeletal remains,
Then they, yeah.
it's, so if we start, talking about holding in sacred trust or, safeguarding for future or just something, it's just, I think it takes that charge up. 'Cause you curate artifacts and these are
Yeah,
not artifacts.
these are not artifacts, these are remains of people.
all
Well,
right.
that's what's so special about the committee, just as someone who's new to it, but as a Portsmouth resident, the fact that you guys didn't backfill the, involving the descendant community, which is wonderful. You see in the Smithsonian attempting now to say, we recognize our error, we're trying to be ethical, again, like sort of backfilling, and that didn't happen here, which is great, which is really, nice to see.
And they took the lead.
Took the lead.
It's wonderful.
Okay, I was trying to clean up, get rid of extra words here.
Chop it down to 3 committees, 3 communities, and some. It's like you write in a paper and you're like, okay, I'm only 100 words short, and therefore.
And I'm kind of wrestling with myself whether we say a portion was held out or a sample was what
I like sample.
portion just sounds like we just willy-nilly took
Just pulled
pieces.
some, yeah.
I like sample, okay, that's now substitute.
What is it?
Okay, I Okay, I think this'll, let me read this out. It is important to continue this committee because a small sample of remains are held with the hope that they will yield additional research value. The descendant community decided in 2015 that the community may want to learn more about the origins of those who are buried on Chestnut Street and thus asked for them to be held in sacred trust. The committee is currently evaluating options for how the remains will continue to be stewarded over the next 10 years or more.
Where are we thinking in the document we would?
That's, look,
Question, I was wondering where that would kind of plunk into.
yeah,
I almost think, in my opinion, it could be the start of the second paragraph, because then it leads into over the last 20 years. So it's talking about the vote that happened, the future that we're hoping for, and then what has happened in the meanwhile of the last 20 years. The purpose of the group has evolved and changed, and yes.
I'd have to log back in.
Does that feel comfortable for everyone? Or if there's any other
If
opinions?
need be, I can slightly, but I think we've got the gist.
The first line was the committee wants to continue, was that the first line?
It is important to continue this committee.
And I'm wondering if it needs to be at the end, only because you've
Oh.
talked about changing your name and mission,
Yeah,
and then
okay.
you wanna bang it.
I was thinking that it should go after the second paragraph as the third paragraph, because
And-
it tells what we did over the last 20 years, and then it's important to continue this, and as to why this
Oh, you're
is gonna
right.
Yes,
go,
and then the new, and
and
then,
then reestablishing,
yes.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good
That
point.
works.
There's still work to be
you
done.
know, going in front.
No, I
It's fine too.
think you're right, because I
It's
think
fine too.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
fills the gap.
Yeah.
I agree with
Yep.
you.
Okay. That's where I'm plopping it right now. I was trying to get rid of one of the
There's an extra community in there.
Yeah, it is, and
Just
I'm
say-
trying to get
can
rid
you
of it.
just say they? I mean,
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, I think we can. I think we can say they, yep,
it's kind of the antecedent, I don't think there's too much confusion,
Yeah, the committee,
even though the committee is singular and then
Okay.
it's plural.
I know, take a look. She's my proofreader, she's really good at words.
Oh, this was always a draft anyway, right?
Yeah, but that's, you know, it'd be nice to get this on, and this would be on the city council agenda for December 8th.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's why
so-
we want a final.
Yep, so we'll get it submitted before the holiday weekend and
Perfect.
be all set and ready to go.
and it's a great one, if anyone wants to come to that meeting. Right, is that where we do no, I'm one too early.
Holiday music and stuff, unless you wanna wait.
Oh, yeah,
and
that is
save
the
it for
holiday.
You could wait and save it for the holiday one.
Just to ignore me, guys. The 22nd is the holiday one.
You guys have 2 meetings a month?
We do, except November,
Therefore, it
No,
is
November
important
is
to
two.
continue.
yeah, we have
Yep.
two. There's a couple months that it's like a one.
Yep.
They
All right.
do that,
August.
but then we
Okay.
can take out a
July
few
is
of the
the
words
one.
and make
It's a
it.
holiday.
Got a legal brief, sorry.
Hey, we're not a draft in a deadline, you know?
Nothing.
Right,
Yes. Okay, so if the committee feels good for that,
hold on, we're gonna give you the latest version. Okay, give it one more look now that I flipped the sentences, or flipping the sentences.
hope everyone wore their winter parkas.
Yeah, I did.
Still wearing
The snow, it is cold. Yes, I know, I'm wearing a city council tonight, 7 layers.
sometimes a lot.
Waist line, leggings.
You drink hot tea or something, or stuff and put something.
Can I, while we're waiting for
Yes.
a moment for our wordsmith, Lauren, I was curious, how's the figures at the end holding up?
So far, so good.
Okay,
On the right materials, but
See what,
keep an eye
I
on it.
say, and then
Yeah.
I'll drive by tomorrow. Looks good.
It's holding.
You haven't had extreme temperatures since you've done it though, have you?
Usually, not really. I mean, this is like the most sort of wild we're getting.
Yeah.
So 20s tonight to 50 to by the weekend. So we'll see.
Is that what the weather report is tonight, 20s?
I think it's 20
50
tonight,
this weekend?
This is where we are.
50 Sunday. So next week looks warm too. Well,
Low
Unless
thirties.
you're in
depends what
still.
your definition of warm is. Anything under 60.
So
It's cold.
I'm just wondering, maybe what we'll do is just reach out to Jerry Ann and Valerie and say, would you like to have a conversation? Here's what we've discussed in the committee, and bring them up to speed and see if there's interest, so that we're teed up for that dual path of library or Black Heritage, or maybe it's library for a period until Black Heritage is ready, depending on what is on, you know,
Yeah.
what is on people's plates, since the library already has a collection. I do also think maybe we could reach out to Chris Dwyer, who helped coordinate the initial, what do you call it, like the sacred container that we did,
Yes.
you know, Jeffrey Cooper did.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Maybe she could kind of reach out and
See
see
if there's
what that
anything.
would take.
Okay,
Because I think we'd want one regardless of where they would go.
I would agree, yeah.
Okay, so if it's okay, we'll just kind of reach out and see if we could get a proposal.
Yeah.
Because we've got a little money, I think, still in the trust, and maybe. Good.
Provide a lot of continuity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to have it continue.
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
The same with like Jerome being part of the work at the site and having to refer to us.
What little I know of Jeffrey, I think he'd be thrilled to
Yeah.
provide this.
Yep.
There is, one that I don't necessarily forget, but it's not always on the forefront, as are these 8 teeth from these first 8 individuals. But, there was a series of samples that did go to Dr. Bruce Jackson for his root projects, and it went to some of his students. And then Bruce Jackson died and his lab disbanded. This is what happens in science and different institutions. And then Ellen Marlett, my partner, got a phone call from the police that said, we're cleaning out Dr. Jackson's lab.
Oh
We
my.
have samples from Portsmouth. So there are, in fact, I believe, 30 pulverized samples that are in a deep freeze. And
And that can, where's,
right now they're stored in my old company.
Okay.
That when we sold the company, I asked if they would still continue to store those frozen samples. So the 8 teeth do not need special environmental conditions, but there will be a need for a small, very, cold temperature to keep those pulverized samples.
Oh, right.
That's what they do in order to.
Yeah.
test it, they destroy it.
process, yeah.
Right, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out how would, once those pulverized samples come back, how do they stay frozen?
That's,
Oh.
yeah. So that's just, it's. They did, as far as I know, they endured the trip from Boston up to Portsmouth before we could put them back in the refrigerator. I mean, we brought them in a case. I think there's some latitude in terms of just, exposure to warmer temperatures before it gets tested again.
Right, I understand that, but I'm thinking long term.
Oh, I
It's gonna be like, I mean, are you gonna hold those samples forever? Or the new company's gonna hold those samples forever? If we get them sent back, they can't go into the library, because how are they gonna?
They
How are
could
they
if
gonna-
we had a,
Just need a small
refrigerator.
freezer or refrigerator.
Right.
So it's just at 32, it's not at like
It's not minus
zero?
40, it's not a terribly, not.
Oh, okay, all right, I thought it was like, liquid nitrogen.
No, we bought a commercial, not a regular domestic one, but it was, I'll have to check and just see what the temperature is, but it's not a terribly deep freeze, I think we could.
Okay,
But I was thinking about that, like,
something that could just be plugged into the wall,
yes, yep,
sitting there,
Yeah.
okay.
But I would say make sure there's like a backup power source in case you ever lose power.
Right.
Yeah.
so maybe if, we get from you, Kathleen, kind of what the criteria would be for these 2 kind of very discrete, different types of remains, and then we can, that way when we go both to talk to Black Heritage Trail folks and to the library, we'll be very clear about here's what we needed.
Yep.
And we'll just kind of break it down very simply so it's captured. And Cameron might help us do some drafting, so that's why she's sitting here.
So I have a comment to make, and that is, we did not know about the last comment you just made. And I just want to know, where is that going to be centrally located so that people as a committee know, and that it doesn't get lost via one person's knowledge and not the rest of us? God forbid that something happens to that one person. You know, we just want to make sure that we follow through with the documentation and with what we have available for future use or research.
Yeah, so I know, I think that's a great point, cause I didn't know. So making sure with the MOU that we've discussed, like just making sure we outline what remains that we have that have been in Kathleen's stewardship, and then what ones are, you know, the remains that are within your former employees'
Even at
holdings.
UNH or wherever, you know, we just need to know where they're located.
Yeah.
I think there should be a general list that should be held.
Yeah, so we only have the two groups of remains, correct? The ones that are currently in, that were tested, that are frozen, and then the non,
Well, they were pulverized
Pulverized.
for testing, and then I don't remember the exact number, but then we may have given them 40 samples, they pulverized all 40, they used 5 or 6. In fact, we sent out a sample 2 years ago, Suzanne,
Yeah.
and then we used it from that pulverized set.
We did, just the pulverized
Yeah.
sets, we didn't
Yeah,
destroy
so,
anything.
and even with that was the test to see, okay, they couldn't really extract DNA.
anymore, yeah, that's when we found out there's
Yeah.
been no great advances, so we didn't wanna destroy the new.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so, which is why we did it sort of, let's take the pulverized samples and see if there's any way to extract any information. The answer came back no. So, we're still kind of waiting for the magic, technology
that's fine.
to get where our wishes are.
Okay, we now have a beautified
Framework.
paragraph. So, we all ready?
Ready.
Okay, over the last wrong one. The descendant community decided in 2015 that they may want to learn more about the origins of those individuals buried on Chestnut Street, and thus asked for a small sample of remains to be held in sacred trust in the hope that future technological innovation could yield additional research value. It is imperative to continue the important work of this committee, which is currently evaluating options to best steward the remains over the next 10 years or more.
Okay, that goes after over the last 20 years,
Yep,
right?
it does, yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Sounded pretty nice.
Yes. Okay. Great,
So if this is good, the committee could take a motion to finalize the draft report and empower you to share it on the agenda.
so if that sounds good to everyone, if that rewrite sounded okay, then I would look for a motion to approve and, with authority, have me place it on the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the draft, place it on the agenda for the 8th.
Second by Dee. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Wonderful. And next, we would go to public comment, if there's anybody. Hello, Jason. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, I only came up mute just to say aye.
Wonderful, thank you. Unanimous. Since there's no public comment, I would open it up if there's any new business that anyone would like to discuss. And then we would set the date for our next meeting. If the committee so feels, we could have our next meeting in the new year, or we could have a meeting in December.
When would the meeting in December be? Would it be after the 15th?
I think if you wanna get input from library and from Black Heritage Trail, you'd be, if
Better
that's
off
what
at the
you're
top of the new year.
Yeah, just practically speaking, cause so many people are gone next week, in my experience.
Yes. if that feels comfortable with the committee, then so then I guess my question would be, we'd have to,
Tentatively set it.
yeah, we would tentatively set it because the new council has to vote to
Be up to committee.
approve this committee. So then we, if the Mondays at 4 p.m. still work for everyone,
When would that vote happen with the new committee, with the new council?
it's usually the second meeting, so
Yeah, let me pull up
That would be in
the-
January,
yeah.
that'd be January like the 12th.
Yeah, I would assume the swearing in would be the 5th, but I don't think that's been set yet. Cause the 19th is MLK.
Oh, you guys are voting on the schedule for the new city council meeting tonight, I mean, for the.
Yeah, I knew that, guys. I knew that.
Hold on, I'm gonna pull up the packet.
Look at it.
Hang on, meeting packet, at least I think you are, I think it's tonight, I seem to recall seeing that, hang on.
Oh, it is. It is.
Third item, second item. Okay, hold on.
Proposed calendar. So the 5th and the 20th. Cause we have a meeting on the 20th because MLK Day is the 19th. So we would, I would assume we'd most likely vote on it on the 20th.
I would assume so too.
So the 20th would be your vote to reestablish this committee.
Correct. So then we really would look to,
To the 26th,
it would either be the 26th or it would be February 2nd. So whatever this committee so sees as fit, if we want to keep with the third Mondays or if we want to swap it, I'm open for whatever people feel. If people need a little bit of time to think about their calendars, we can also send out a doodle.
Or a quick email.
I suggest keeping it the third Monday.
Okay,
I like that. Works for me, but I'm selfish.
okay. So that would, so then if we were gonna keep up with that, then we would be looking at Tuesday. So this is where it gets a little complicated.
Right, because the 19th.
And the 16th is also a holiday of February, which is the third Monday in February is also a holiday. That's President's Day.
So maybe make it the fourth Monday for
Yeah, so
this
maybe the 4th,
January and February, and then you
and then
can
we can
adjust.
revert back to the 3rd. If that feels okay, then we would look to have our next meeting on January 26th.
26th and the 16th is President's Day.
So we can hold, what we'll do is we'll just hold that date and hold this room in that space. And if something changes, then we can adjust from there. So if that feels good to everyone. Just happens to be that those first 2 months, the third Monday, are holidays.
All right, start with me.
Okay. Okay, and if there's no new business, or no old business, then we can adjourn. Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure for the last 2 years. Has it only been 2 years? Yeah. And we will see you at the top of the year. And again, if there's anyone, committee members who'd like to, have a quick couple minutes in front of the council at the beginning of the 8th meeting, please email us. And if not, then I will make the presentation.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.